love getting comments on my YouTube channel. I read almost all of them. And I encourage you guys to continue leaving comments on the YouTube channel because I learn from what you guys say. However, people in the comments section very often make highly fallacious counter arguments. And in this video, we're going to talk about how you can spot them. I want to encourage people to actually continue leaving comments, even if they are fallacies, because you're not going to learn that they're fallacies until you engage in a conversation about them. For example, I actually have made fallacious statements in my videos, and it's been helpful that you people in the YouTube comments, they've called me out for it, big time. For example, in my most popular video, which is this video about C.S. Lewis's Mere Christianity, I made what is known as a straw man fallacy. A straw man fallacy is when you misrepresent your opponent's position to make them easier to attack. And I strawmanned Islam and Judaism. The remaining religions of the world that are popular, such as Judaism and Islam, they're all about the things you can do to go to heaven. Muslims have to pray 4 times a day for 45 minutes or something like that. Jews have to follow the Levitical law and the 10 Commandments to a T. There's a lot more to Judaism than I said there was in this video. And Muslims actually pray 5 times a day for a total of 30 minutes. Not the worst fallacy ever, the point of the video still remains. But again, I used fallacious argumentation there. The purpose of this video is just to help train you guys. You don't even have to be Christian to get value out of this video, but to just train you guys on how to spot fallacious arguments. It's Marcus writes, I don't agree that a man who lived 2,000 years ago will somehow show up again soon. Why? Because it's impossible for someone to come back from the dead. Zombies don't exist. I sure hope they don't exist. There's a really funny response to this argument that people don't rise from the dead, it's impossible, and it's a humorous one from Lutheran satire. Check it out here.
Oh, you sweet little simpletons, people don't rise from the dead. Except for that one time Jesus rose from the dead. Yeah, that was awesome. No, what I'm saying is that Jesus never rose from the dead. And how do you know that, Patrick? Because it's not possible for people to rise from the dead. Yeah, we know. That's why it was sort of a big deal when Jesus rose from the dead. If people could rise from the dead, then people would rise from the dead. If Jesus could rise from the dead, surely someone else would have risen from the dead as well. Other people have risen from the dead. Like who? Like all the people in the Bible who rose from the dead because Jesus rose them from the dead not long before he himself rose from the dead. Well, obviously you can't count those examples. Why not, Patrick? Because they come from the Bible, and the Bible is a ridiculous book full of silly stories that couldn't possibly happen, like... People rising from the dead? Exactly. What a perfectly reasonable use of the scientific method, Patrick. Yeah, we'd love to see you employ this strategy in the laboratory, Patrick. Hey, Connell, I just proved that there's no such thing as barium. And how'd you do that, Donald? By throwing out all the samples of barium.
I also like to refer to what Jordan Peterson says about the resurrection in his interview with Alex O'Connor. Jordan Peterson kind of likes the idea of Christianity, but he struggles to define if any of it is literally true. And here's what he says on the resurrection.
If I went back in time with a Panasonic video camera and put that camera in front of the tomb of Joseph of Arimathea, would the little LCD screen show a man walk out of that tomb?
I would suspect yes.
So that to me seems like a belief in the historical event of the resurrection, or at least of Jesus leaving the tomb, which means that when somebody says, do you believe that Jesus rose from the dead? It doesn't seem clear to me why you're not able to just say, it would seem to me yes.
Because I have no idea what that means.
So purely from a historical perspective, the Gospels are historically reliable as far as we know. And there are other historical records like the writings of Josephus, which seem to indicate that the resurrection did actually happen. To which I'm sure your next question is, how is resurrection possible? How is it possible for someone to rise from the dead? Good question! And the answer is...
I don't know.
I don't know how the resurrection is possible, and I don't know how miracles are specifically possible. But C.S. Lewis, he writes about miracles in his book, Miracles. And it's just it's a highly philosophical angle. It's probably the most intellectual book I've ever read from Lewis, and it was very hard for me to understand. But his point was simply that because of the laws of entropy, meaning the universe is moving towards destruction and death. If we would see evidence of life and moving the opposite direction of entropy, that would be evidence that there is a supernatural force causing our world to go in the way of life, because the natural world is not moving towards life, it's moving toward death. And that is exactly what we see. We see human life existing and flourishing. thus there is a supernatural impact. Check out these videos for more on miracles. And real quick, I'd also like to throw my hat in the ring and defend religion for once. Defending religion these days is not popular. It's not even popular among the Christians. A lot of modern Christians want to emphasize it's all about a relationship with Jesus. Let's throw out the religious aspect of it. And there's certainly a good point to be made there that the relationship aspect is important. And the word religion, when you Google it, just means like belief in God or the supernatural, which is a little bit too broad. I think the contextual definition nowadays is making something super ritualistic. Like we would describe a fundamentalist Baptist and a Catholic, while they both believe in God and believe in Jesus being God. Which of those two groups is more religious? Anyone would say the Catholic. However, have you also ever said in conversation, like, I watch this show religiously, like, I watch The Office religiously, it's that good? Or maybe you say, I like this food so much, I eat it religiously. You say that because you find so much value in it that you would ritualize it and make it into a regular thing. And if we love Jesus more than all of those things, we love Jesus more than The Office, and we love Jesus more than our favorite food, why would we not want to make a religion out of it? And so my thought there is that you can make a religion out of anything. You could make a religion out of The Office. And far enough down the line, that religion would really suck. And further, every false belief that is a religion has been made out of, it goes too far. And it starts to suck. But religion around anything that is truly true is going to be a very good thing. As long as it's true, I think religion is a good thing. But if you're religious about a false thing, it is... If you're enjoying the video so far, consider becoming a member. I made an entire second half to this video that's only available to members, plus 2 other members exclusive videos. It would help me to someday quit my job so I can make these videos full time. Of all the arguments from comments in this video, this is by far the worst. But again, I have to preface that this is not really this person's fault. I'm sure she's a smart person, but arguing in a YouTube comment is just not a good way to get your point across. It's a completely ineffective means of communication. And I don't blame her and I don't mean to make her feel stupid, but her comment is incredibly riddled with fallacies. Secret Weapon writes, if only we had evidence instead of arguments. When people offer this objection, if only we had, evidence instead of arguments, there's typically 2 directions an apologist will take the response. The first one is, well, what evidence would you like to see? And a lot of atheists don't really have an answer for that. And some, like Matt Dillahunty, own the fact that they don't have a response for that. They say if God exists, he knows what will convince me that he exists, so he knows the evidence that I would like to see even though I don't, and he has not given me that evidence, thus he doesn't exist. To which the overall response that I can think of to that is the reason that God might not do that. The reason God might not do that is because he's not going to force Matt into a relationship with him. He loves Matt and would like him to come willingly, but if Matt does not want to, Matt doesn't have to. The other direction you could take this argument in is take her question a little bit more literally. So she's wanting physical, tangible evidence, I imagine. Like, for example, I know that this water bottle exists because I can pick it up and hold it and drink it, etc. And you can't pick up God. And that's where I'd like to introduce you to the stuff exists argument, which I remember actually hearing Alex O'Connor kind of bring this idea up, where there's a bell curve of this argument, where stuff exists, therefore God exists. When you first hear that argument, it sounds completely stupid, it's oversimplified, it's like, that's not much of an argument. And then you go on this bell curve and you start just piling up arguments and everything, and you learn about the Kalam, cosmological argument, you study the moral argument, the transcendental argument, you just go crazy with all this stuff. And then near the end of the bell curve again, and then that ends up being the argument you use again. Because if anything exists, it's evidence that it was created by something. The tangible physical evidence that Secret Weapon is looking for is Secret Weapon. The physical evidence is your butt. And of course that argument's a little bit more complicated and nuanced than that, but those are the 2 directions that you could take it in. And unfortunately, Secret Weapon doesn't do herself any favors, and her follow-up comment is pretty bad. That's lovely, except your understanding of evidence is philosophical, indeterminate, rather than scientific, determinate. And it just so happens that philosophers are united quite resoundingly, 72% in favor of atheism. So the first part of her comment, the indeterminate versus determinate evidence, can kind of be responded to by The second direction, I took her original argument with the physical, tangible evidence, your butt being evidence for God. But then the fallacies just get worse from here. So the first one is she makes an appeal to authority. The problem with an appeal to authority is as long as you're appealing to a human's authority, there is always the potential for them to be wrong. If you talk about a medical issue with your 4-year-old and you appeal to your 4-year-old's authority, they're probably going to be wrong. If you appeal to a medical doctor of 40 years, they're more likely to be right, but it's still completely possible that that doctor is wrong. So any appeal to authority has that potential to be wrong. Here's an example of how appeal to authority is just wrong. So if I said God exists because my dad told me so, and my dad is smart, and my dad studies this, doesn't make it true. Anyone's dad is smart. Anyone's dad can study. It doesn't make my point any truer or any falser. However, there are worse and better appeals to authority. So my appeal to my dad's authority is not that great. But appealing to philosophers' authority is a little better because philosophers are interested in this question of God's existence and they study it and they research it. So not the worst appeal to authority, but one nonetheless. The second fallacy is this 72% of philosophers are in favor of atheism. For one, is that true? I have no idea. There's no source cited, and this is a YouTube comment, so I wasn't really expecting sources to be cited. And secondly, is this appeal to the majority vote. Why do we know this is false? Pretty simple. If you were a Kamala Harris supporter and Trump just won the election by electoral vote and the popular vote, does that make Trump the best candidate? If you're a Kamala supporter, of course you don't think that. And the other way around. When Trump lost and Biden won, none of the Trump supporters thought that Biden was the right candidate. If you're still not getting it, a majority of people elected Adolf Hitler to be president of Germany. Does that make anything he did moral or good? I sure hope that's not your position. And these fallacies bring me to my favorite fallacy of all fallacies, because it's so meta and so cool. It is the fallacy. It works just like this. God exists because my dad told me so. I've just made a bad argument. But that doesn't mean I'm wrong. In fact, I think I'm right. I think God does exist, despite my bad argument. Secret Weapon used a ton of bad arguments and a ton of fallacious arguments, but that doesn't make her wrong. So in these kind of dialogues, you can point out fallacies and you might be right, but that doesn't mean that you've won the debate. You still need to prove your position. Hopefully this video helped you to critically analyze people's arguments a little bit more, prepare you for better and higher, more intellectual conversations. Bye!